big news for you this late morning, going into the afternoon, is about President Trump and how he's in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. So after an electrical issue with Air Force One recently, the president did officially land in Davos. If you were curious about the details on that situation, there was some sort of electrical issue. They swapped out aircraft. Everything's fine. So the president was expected to use his appearance to address affordability issues in the U.S., but there's been some concern about his ambitions to acquire Greenland that could overshadow that plan. So we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But first, we're following this hour-long remark that he made from the president, and there was a brief question and answer period. So let's listen in.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your speech. I do have a few follow-up questions, if it's okay. Sure. I don't think I should start with Greenland, maybe. I'll start with the economy. The U.S. economy is doing really well. But how to sustain this growth moving forward? Because there's always a recession looming around the corner.
Well, you know, the one thing about economies and recessions is sometimes you get hit unexpectedly and there's nothing you can do about it. They're all brilliant people, but there's nothing. One example was COVID. We had an economy going at levels like nobody had ever seen my first 2.5, 3 years. And then I heard the word pandemic, not COVID. They came up with that name over a period of time. We won't get into that. But I heard the word pandemic. And I had a poll come out that was so strong just prior to that, and I was with the two best pollsters, McLaughlin and Fabrizio, and they said, sir, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back and ran as president and vice president, they couldn't beat you. And then what happened is the following day, I was told to stay tuned because there's something really bad happening in China. There are bodies laying all over Wuhan, right around that certain building that we talk about. I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID, and the whole world suffered. We did a phenomenal job. I don't think we got the credit we deserved. We did something that Operation Warp Speed, which some people say was one of the greatest military feats ever. We did a great job. Used our military, used a lot of people. But sometimes you get hit with things, nothing you can do. You get hit with things like that unexpectedly. And we got through it. And when I left, the stock market was higher than it was previous to the COVID coming up. And that was, I called it a great achievement. But things happen. Bad things happen. The things that we can stop are wars if we're smart. That we can stop. Those are a matter of being intelligent and having intelligent people on the other side, because wars are the worst of all. Wars are worse than anything. But we can stop wars because that's sort of up to us. But things like dust flying in the air, wherever COVID comes from or whatever comes, sometimes you have to be a little bit lucky. But we are poised to have an economy like no other, not only in this country, but anywhere. And you know, when you hear the kind of numbers that, I can tell you that Scott Bessent was with me the other day, and he's looking at numbers. He said, I can't. And that's all he's done his whole life, pretty much your whole life. Scott, you weren't going to be a football player, I don't think. Scott was not that great at football, but he was always good at numbers, right? And he was looking at numbers. He said, I've never seen anything like this. We're poised to do things that no other country has ever done. And, you know, luck, I hate to say it, but we need a little luck. We don't want to get hit by something that nobody could have thought. Whoever thought we were going to hit by a pandemic? You know, when I heard the word pandemic, I said, oh, that's an ancient problem. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides. And that war was raging, and they were all dying from the Spanish flu. They were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight. So, you know, you don't know how that would have turned out. But so we do, I mean, subject to that, and I always have to put a caveat in for it, but we're poised to have the greatest growth of any large country, I think any country that there's been, when you look at what's happening in the United States, it's really amazing.
Thank you. One thing that maybe keeps you up at night, I know you don't sleep that much anyway, Mr. President, is the debt. The U.S. debt is high, is now the biggest expenditure on your budget. How to get out of that impasse?
Well, the big thing is growth. I mean, growth is the way. If we grow like this, we go from having a $37 trillion. We go from having high debt to low debt. But we also are cutting expenses, you know, the old-fashioned way. We have extraordinary growth. I think we're going to be growing our way out. I think we're going to be paying off debt. We're taking in tremendous money from tariffs fairly. And again, I'm using them judiciously. You know, Switzerland's a case study. I could have gotten much more. I could have asked for much more. But we're using them judiciously. But I think growth, most importantly, and then cutting costs. Now, if you take a look at Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud and other things. People going to airports, they came into the country, they don't have 10 cents, and they're leaving with hundreds of thousands of cash in their bags. When we get to that, and our DOJ, Pam, and Todd, and all the people that work over there, and all of the people that work in here, I can tell you, Scott Bessent is working on that. It's a priority, right? You have your whole team. We're in there looking for where this money is coming from, how much it is. It could be more than $19 billion. Can you believe that? That's just one state. If we were able to cut out 50% of the fraud, 50%, and we should be able to do better than that, we would have a balanced budget without having to talk about even growth. So we have a lot of options, but we're working very hard on that. That's a big deal. It's not just the protests, the fake protests done by agitators and, you know, professional insurrectionists. That's what they are. They're professional troublemakers. But we are looking very strong at the money too in Minnesota and other places.
I think, Mr. President.
Okay, you were just listening into some of the president's comments as he is in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. We know that's something that many of you guys want more information about. Some of you are questioning, what does this even mean? That's why we're going to continue to follow this for you. It is happening now. As soon as we get any further developments, you can count on us to bring them to you, both on air and online in the capacity that you're watching right now. We do want to show you something else, though, also related to President Trump. You've probably heard quite a bit of talk about Greenland lately, right? Well, we also want to talk about Gaza. There's a couple of different things here at play. So the president has pledged to fight any NATO country with tariffs if they stand in his way of purchasing Greenland, the territory that currently belongs to Denmark. Now, this all comes as the president is also asking for international unity. He invited dozens of countries to pay $1 billion. Again, billion with a B, to become permanent members of his Gaza Board of Peace. You might remember late in 2025, we had lots of breaking news about that peace deal between Hamas and Israel. This is essentially trying to move that deal forward to continue a peaceful area in the Gaza Strip. The Board of Peace is part of the second phase of President Trump's ceasefire agreement in that Israel-Hamas war, for specifics for you there. And it is expected to oversee the rebuilding of that area that's just been war-torn. If you've seen the images or kept up with that news, you already know. Now, just yesterday, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said there's overwhelming support behind these plans. But of course, there's also going to be some resistance, and we want to cover all sides of this. So if this is a story that resonates with you, please leave me a comment in the chat. I'd be curious to know what you think. Now, France's foreign minister says his country supports peace, but does warn the board may wind up undermining the United Nations, something to consider here. Now, President Trump has hinted it could do just that as well. In his own words here, I'm quoting, he said, "I wish we didn't need a board of peace, but the United Nations," he goes on to say, "you know, with all of the wars that I settled, the United Nations never helped me on one war."